Well, certain presidential candidate, again, let me say that, presidential
Who
candidates
the hell
believe
listens to those commies? The demo commies? Who the hell listens to those idiots?
whether or not you like it, they are. Cory Booker is actually proposed.
Who?
Cory Senator
Yeah.
Senator Cory,
Yeah.
from the former mayor of Newark.
What's his last name?
Booker, as in I'm going to book you.
Yeah. I thought like a booger in your nose. Like
that too. Booger. Well, he acts that way. So anyway, he's represented a while ago legislation to enact a committee to look into reparations for Black Americans.
Reparations. Who's going to have to? Wait a minute. Wait. Who's going to have to pay reparations?
Well, that's what the committee's going to look in. It's just a committee. And, I'm hoping to get out a nice chunk of the pie because I have a good, 4.25% African. According to 23andMe, 4.2% African. Yeah. So
it's all in your hair, by the way. All your African hair. You have.
So I have a stake in this. So I could get like a couple cents if I'm lucky.
Too bad you can't dance. You'd have a lot more money coming your way if you could dance.
I really want like all those descendants of slave owners that now are dirt poor. Like the poorest white people in like rural Alabama, Mississippi. Like those are the descendants. They're like the most dirty poor people in America. The white, I really would just love to have a couple, dollars from them because or inherit a couple.
Who's going to have to pay these reparations? And who are we paying, by the way? Do we know who we're paying?
See, they get out of all this by saying we're just setting up a committee to look into it. That's all we're doing.
But I still don't understand what are you talking about? Reparations for what?
For being slaves, for the descendants of slaves,
for being slaveholders.
No, reparations for being slaves, for being descendants of slaves.
All the slaves are dead. DEAD, dead long time ago. Not a single slave is alive today. So who are we paying?
Money.
So I don't get it. I don't understand. Money what?
Money. See that
I don't get it.
It's now a policy. Well,
I don't have any slaves. Do you have any slaves?
I have you. I have you.
Yeah, you have me. Yeah.
Well, you see, that's the.
I used to have a sex slave too, but I got rid of that. Yeah. Can sex slaves get reparations?
I didn't hear that. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that.
Can sex slaves get reparation? That's a good question.
Do they want reparation?
Let's ask.
I don't want to answer that one. In any event, this very much follows the Marxist trend of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. See, it's not an action. It's actually going to affect. If this bill passes the Senate, which it's not, which actually I believe Mitch McConnell says he's not going to support it in any way.
Dead on arrival.
Well, no, within this, it's not even going to touch the floor, according to him. By the way, it also so happens that Senator Mitch McConnell is a descendant of slave owners. So the left has theorized that he hates it because he doesn't want to pay his due.
Right.
So anyway, that aside, basically this is a 2 steps forward, 1 step back approach. All they're going to do is push this committee. What is the committee going to do? It's going to reaffirm exactly what they believe, is that Black people should get more money thrown at them.
Right. So they're not getting enough. So they're not getting enough on welfare. Then now they need more money for reparations, right?
Yes. So now they have.
I'd like to point out that if I were a Black person and I was successful, and there are many successful Black citizens of the United States whose grandparents were slaves
in the world to be Black,
whose grandparents were slaves, and for instance, Clarence Thomas. His grandparents, he's descended from slaves. You don't hear successful, energetic, competent, industrious Black Americans screaming for reparations. And the reason is very simple, because they, as an individual, do not want to be rewarded for the sins of other people, and the sins of the father are not to be laid upon the children.
To a certain degree, I can speak on that for the Armenians. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're aware, but there are many movements. I mean, in addition to recognizing the Armenian genocide, there's another movement underneath the surface, which is reparations.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people want land back. A lot of key places in Turkey they want back. Financial reparations, but as far as they're concerned, they're more focused on international recognition of the genocide, number one.
Mm-hmm.
But reparations does come up a lot. And I'm sitting here all like, I personally would be okay with not getting any reparations for a genocide which did not directly affect me.
Mm-hmm.
It affected my great-grandparents, to a certain degree, my grandparents. But, I'm very content with what I have right now. And as much as I'd love justice to be done, I don't want another war with Turkey. I don't want bloodshed over it. I don't want to trash the Turkish economy over it, and
in the history of the United States, going back prior to the Civil War,
and I could argue a genocide is worse than slavery, but
prior to the Civil War, the whole idea of reparations for freed slaves was debated by William O. Douglas and Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
They're called the Lincoln-Douglas debates. So this happens just prior to the Civil War, and it also continued after the Civil War. After the Civil War, a group of American Freedom Society, they raised money to buy a whole tract of land in Africa called Liberia, which is a nation today. If you look at the flag of Liberia, it resembles the flag of the United States. It has the stars and stripes, but it only has one gigantic star right in the middle of it. And what happened there was that this society, they solicited any ex-slave, former slave that was not happy and couldn't adjust, and couldn't find their way to be included in American life, and couldn't accept American life, and couldn't forgive the slaveholder. These people would pay for their passage to go back to Africa and settle and be in their own country. And thousands of them did. 13,000 initially. 13,000, right? So if you want to talk reparations, they should only be the people who were damaged, not to their descendants.
Sure. I would
say the same thing for you with the Armenian situation. I mean, it's horrible what happened to the Armenians, as it was horrible what happened to the blacks.
Let's say that Turkey gives back
people who are existing today, we didn't do those atrocities. Now with Armenia, you could make the argument that Turkey is still engaged in genocide. All right, to this day. All right, that's a different cup of tea. So I wouldn't compare the two.
Well, I don't know if you know, one more thing. Germany has offered reparations, and I think they have given reparations to survivors of the Holocaust.
Right. Right. And there was a movement in the United States to make reparations to the Japanese that were interred during the Second World War.
I think they did receive a little, like it was nothing in comparison to what they lost. But
no, nothing in comparison. No, they were not restored.
And that's the thing.
That really is a black mark on the American culture. Because those people were ripped out of our neighborhoods. There may have been a couple of spies, I don't know, but certainly the vast majority of little kids were not spies. And they were ripped out, and they were never compensated and restored to and these were American citizens. These were American citizens.
There's a whole nother layer to it.
And this was done by a Democrat president named Franklin Delano Roosevelt, by the way.
That guy. There's a whole nother layer to it, though, is the fact that if there were slaves right now or Holocaust survivors, money will not make the pain go away.
No.
I mean, if you gave each of them $1,000, that not only would bankrupt America.
I once wrote an essay as an undergraduate in philosophy and ethics at the Catholic University of America, and I wrote an essay and I proposed that any disgruntled African American who can't fit in, hates white people, hates their life, can't survive, will pay you first-class airfare to any place in Africa you want, and we'll give you $100,000 in cash. The only stipulation is you can never come back here, and your descendants can never come back here. Boy, you must see that lit the whole room up. That was a hot debate. Let me tell you something.
So, well, I mean, you had fun throwing that grenade, didn't you? You had a lot of fun doing that, didn't you?
Anyway, reparations, I'm opposed to it, except for Armenia.
And then,
just to make my partner happy, all right?
Right.
Bye.